Welcome to the first session on the challenges of digitalization and how can we measure on its impact on the economy. I'm very happy to moderate this panel of very distinguished speakers. We have three speakers this morning. First, Carlos da Silva Costa, he's the governor of the Banco of Portugal. Very happy to have our good friend Carlos here. Then we have Nadim Ahmad, who is the head of the Trade and Competitiveness Statistics Division at the OECD. And finally, Carlos Sánchez Muñoz, who is the sub-director and head of the division of the balance of payment divisions in the statistics department at the IMF. We will proceed in the same order. Each speaker has 35 minutes for the presentation. And after we finish the three presentations, then we will open up for questions from the floor. So, Governor Costa.
Hello there.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Governor Mario Marcel, for the invitation. Congratulations for promoting this conference. I think that is very timely and is very needed. I'm not speaking as a statistician because I'm a governor. I'm speaking from the standing point of view of a policymaker, and a policymaker that is dependent on statistics and is always looking to statistics in order to take decisions. And this means that the quality and the opportunity and the accuracy of the statistics is very important for us. And what I will try to pass to you is the following: is that we are in a situation where we need to think not only about what are the statistics that we can produce with the new data that is available, but more than that, we need to ask ourselves what are the questions that the policymakers need to answer, and if we have or not the right statistics to answer these questions. And what was in my slide, I will say in a very simple way to present it, was a question: is the digital economy a new wine in old wineskins? Are we passing this concept of digital economy through the concepts and the theoretical apparatus framework that was the base of previous statistics? If it is the case, it could be, we could face a situation where we need to think about. And my point is the following. First of all, we need to distinguish between digital economy and digital sectors. And when we speak about digital economy, we need to speak about a new regime that is coming about after what we call digitation. This means to transfer information to binary sets, very long binary sets. Second, ICT, information and communication technology revolution. And third, and it's very important, the impact of these two on the production and on the distribution at world level. And if we take account the impact of these two matters, this means introduction of appropriation of information in the factories, namely by building robots, by promoting machines that are intelligent, and same time the possibility to transfer communication and information at a very high speed along the world between different actors, we will feel that the world has changed. And what we need to understand at this new world asks for a new theory, a new approach, a new understanding, in order to have the right answer. And one of the questions that I was pinpointing when I was listening to the General Director of Eurostat is that we are moving from a world where it was possible to impose, to make compulsory the provision of information for statistical reasons, because all the statistics were linked with a territory, were linked with a state, were linked with a power, to a situation where there are a lot of information that is a no man's land, that is not under the power of a state, and by that way we are dependent on the ability to get this information from these actors that are not under our, you say, realm of activity. And this is very important, because this means that there are now 2 points that we need to understand. Is that in what concerns production, in what concerns with the creation of global value chains, the information is shared among organizations, within organizations, that are in some way are in a no man's land. And all things concerning with price, transfer prices or concerning with the trade are dependent on these entities, and these entities have their own strategy in what concerns the price setting or the information setting. When we speak about the distribution, we are feeling now a new world. It's a world where there are some entities that have a lot more information than anyone, and they have the capacity to influence behavior of everyone dealing with these big databases. And this means that the big tech are a reality on themselves that is in a competition with the national states. And this is a big impact in what concerns behavior. This has a big impact in what concerns market discipline. This has a big impact in what concerns competition. And this is an important factor in what concerns the understanding of behavior of the national economy when we try to establish a policy. If someone thinks that it is possible now to understand how prices are set, how wages are established, how trade is managed, we are, and if we are not able to understand this new reality, that is the reality of global value chains, the reality of new big platforms of distribution, in this reality of big data processing, we don't understand that the behavior of the national economies is very dependent on this situation. And this means for me that the first thing that we need to understand in order to be able to manage the economy is that it's not enough to measure. The measure that we do needs to have a meaning, to have a sense, and to be part of an understanding. Information that is not a part of an understanding, it's not meaningful, it's not useful. And the information to be useful needs to be part of an answer to a set of questions that are pertinent to understand the evolution of the economy. And this means that one of the points that we need to make clear is that if we want to be in line with the new realities, we need to discuss among ourselves if it is possible to stay in a world where there is no policy coordination, but there is also no information sharing, and no capacity to impose the sharing of the information that is critical to understand the reality. And if you look to the big tech, to the big techs or the big platforms, they know more about behavior of citizens than the national authorities know, because they have a lot more information about what has been the behavior, what have been the patterns, reaction, and what is underway. If you want to understand what is behavior and what concerns wage and price setting, you need to understand that it's not possible to do it without taking into account that part of the trade movements is internalized by big corporations. And in some way, value added is established in a strategic corporate approach and not in the old way of different corporates competing for the market and establishing in an autonomous way prices and deciding in an autonomous way wage. This is, for me, the important point. This means that, for me, it's critical to ask not for only a cooperation among statistical institutions, but more than that, to establish, I will say, a central capacity to ask for this information based on the power of the state. But as there is no national state that is able, it's necessary to get at the supranational level someone that will do it and will have the power to ask for that information. To be at the mercy of those that have the information, it will be in a way of showing our, I will say, weakness, how to frustrate our capacity to get the right answers to the questions that we have. But before that, we need to understand what is the real way the economy is organized at world level. And to recognize that there are two illusions that are not real. First, the idea that we will have a flat world with competitors acceding to the technology and to work and compete on the same way. We will not have that. What we will have is a hierarchical world with some centers having the capacity to get the knowledge, to provide the knowledge, to organize the value chains, and to manage the way that this value chain is landed in each country by the way that they locate parts of the production. Because the countries are not producing no more products. They are taking part in the stage of production of value chains. The second point that is necessary to understand is that we are going to a point where the main asset in what concerns distribution and in what concerns behavior of citizens is the capacity to manage big set of information. And we are going to what has been called already as a surveillance state. A surveillance state not in national terms, but a surveillance regime. This means that there are a lot of situations where several actors are able to understand, to anticipate behavior and to decide on that behavior, whatever the state is interested to promote or to do. And this means that if we don't have the capacity to understand these two topics, we will not have the capacity to react or to have the right policy to do that. The third point that we need to understand is that in this context, there are some matters that become very difficult to apply. First of all, the competition rules, because I will say the fundamental base of this economy is based in a very large market with segments that are well established across the world. And for that, for being competitive, these entities need to have a large scale. And the large scale is provided by the technology advance and not by any other element. And they will be in the front line as long as they have the competitive edge. And this means that we need to pass from a competition approach that is based on market shares to a competition approach that is based on the capacity to other actors to accede to this technology, to accede to innovation, and to challenge the incumbents. There is no meaning to think that we can limit a big platform only by imposing limits on the borders of some states. The only way is to promote all the other competitors that will come and will limit them, because we are in an economy that is dependent on rents of the imperfect competition. Imperfect competition generates rents, and rents of imperfect competition, by definition, are transitory. But for being transitory, it means that it's necessary someone comes after and challenge the one that is incumbent. And to challenge the one that is incumbent is very dependent on the research and innovation policy, and is very dependent on the public authorities' behavior in what concerns education, training, and innovation. And if there is no way to promote other technologies that will be competing with those that are incumbent, is not by the way that we did before in what concerns competition, by dividing the company, that we are able to get to the level of competition that we want. And this is linked to another factor that is very important, is that these all imperfect competition actors and the benefiters are doing it in a very interesting way, because they are decreasing prices, at the same time they are getting rents. And this means that what we are seeing is technology are bringing a big advantage in terms of productivity, is bringing a big advantage in terms of scale, is bringing a big advantage in terms of management of the market, and sometimes these companies are able to provide goods or for free, or goods at a lower market than they were provided before. And this means that we need to understand the economics of these sectors, and we need to understand how it's possible to provide a good for free and at the same time to be profitable. How it is possible to provide a good for free and at the same time to get a big share of the market and a big power. And this means that in some way there is a problem here, that is protection of the customer, protection of customer, protection of the citizen, in order to understand that what is given as free is not so free. There is no free lunch, and at the end of the day, someone is paying what is free. And we need to understand that when we are paying or we are getting something for free, we are not giving something that in terms of public interest and public good is very critical. And this means that at the same time, we need to look what is the value of big data bases that are built on the base of this exchange of a service for free. What is the value associated? What are the limits in what concerns the organization of the whole economy and the economic order? And if you ask me what are for me the main points, the main point, first of all, is to understand what is the rationale behind the new economic order, what is the role of digital technology in supporting this new economic order, what is the role of national powers in what concerns managing their economies in that situation? What is the capacity, for instance, to manage the monetary policy, economic policy, or the competition policy, for instance, in that situation? Or if we need to go to a level of coordination and super state power in order to ensure that at the end of the day we get the right balance. And this is for me the main topic, and very interesting. It was the point that was raised about your presentation, Mariana, is what to do with these entities that are so big and so powerful and that are located in no man's land in order to make them part of the picture. If we don't make them part of the picture, this means that you don't get the best information and the more important information about the way they behave and the way they are influencing the economy. But this goes to another direction that is very, very important for me, is that we need to go from an aggregate approach of data to a different approach that is based on microdata and the capacity to analyze for economic policy or for monetary policy or for other reasons, or understanding behavior of citizens, to get this information and treat this information on that side. Because if we stay at level that we were used to do before, aggregate level, average, growth rates, and so on, we have a problem after, is that we are not understanding enough how the fabric, how the structure of the society is moving, and how to do to preserve the welfare of this society. This is a point where we need to make a step forward. But you need to make a step forward even more if you understand that the tools of artificial intelligence are giving to these entities that are in a no man's land, or no state land if you want, are giving them the possibility to manage the reality in their benefit. It's a very unequal fight between the state and the entity. If the big entity has microdata, has analyzed microdata, has capacity to understand behavior, and at the same time the state is providing policies that is not based on a micro understanding of what is going on. It's why at the level of the central bank we decide to go ahead with the laboratory of microdata. It was at the beginning somewhat new, but it's, I think, the trend that we need to take. Summing up, because I don't want to take all the time that was allowed to me, summing up, first point, we need a general theory of the new economic order to understand who is who, how to deal with these entities, and how to empower economic and monetary competition and social policy in this context. Otherwise, we are always running beyond the curve, running with the demands requests from society of information that we are not able to provide because we are limited by the borders of the state where each statistical institute is working. If we have this possibility to get, I will say, a general theory of the new economic order, we need after to decide what are the right questions or the right issues that we need to answer. And this is very important in order to to understand what are the indicators or the statistical information that we need to collect. Because it's not a blind collection of information. What we need is a clever collection of information. Third, we need to be able to get the power of through the coordination to get these entities within the picture, providing information as any other entity in the national terms is asked to provide. Our statistical capacity depends on the power of the state in order to make compulsory the information that is needed. And this is a point where we need to be very clear to understand. And after, we need to understand what is the right type of data that we need to collect. We need to collect aggregated data. We need to collect only monetary and financial data. We need to collect economic data, or we need to collect something very different from the past, that is data that is related to behavior of citizens. But if it is the case, we have a new problem that is linked with the protection, data protection. And we need to ensure that data protection is enough to ensure two things. First, that the data is not available to anyone. Second, we need to ensure that this data is not used for objectives that are not public policy objectives. And this is very critical. But the point where we are now is not good, because the data is available. The data is in the hands of some big companies, and they are not supposed to use this data for public purpose. They are using this data for their own purpose. What we have now, and in some cases is not applicable, in the case of European Union, we have a data protection system that is very strong, but outside the European Union is not effective. And what we have now is only the possibility to ask people that have the data to protect it. But if they try to, or they use this data in their own, or for their own advantage, it's impossible to say that they are not able to do that. And they get this information because people are willing to providing the information. When you go to Google, or when you go to the shop in the internet, or when you go to consult a newspaper, you are providing a lot of information. And a lot more of information than you could imagine 10 years ago. And this information has a lot of economic value, but has a lot of value for society and for the public good. And it needs to be preserved. And it's where I think that we need to have a new order in statistical terms. To be clear, we have a new economic order. We need a clear understanding what are the rules of this economic order. We need to have the indicators to understand how this economic order is going. We need to understand how to manage this economic order. And we need to do that. We need a new, I will say, framework of cooperation among different institutions that are collecting and producing statistic information. And finally, and I finish here, we need to be sure that this information is microdata, because if it is not information, it's not microdata, we are beyond the curve, because those that are managing the market, that are managing the economic relations, are using microdata with a big advantage in what concerns the relationship with public authorities. So, in a clear understanding of what I'm saying, as a governor, I will be very interested to know why it's so difficult to get back the inflation to the target. But in order to understand how is it so difficult to get it, I need to understand the transmission of monetary policy, the transmission to demand, the transmission to wage, transmission to prices. And in order to do that, it's not enough to look at the aggregate data, even if it is very good. The problem is to understand how the aggregate data is produced by every actor, every agent in the economy. So to go back, my question that was in my presentation was digital economy, new wine into old wineskins. And my answer is very clear. We need new wineskins to get rid of this new wine. Because if we stay with this new wine, with old framework, we will miss what is very important, is what will be the pillars of a new political and social order based on a new economic order. And if we are speaking then as statisticians or governors, we are speaking in the name of people, we are speaking in the name of empowering people of their destiny. We need to ensure that we are able to provide this information. And going back to management, in management we say that we are not able to manage anything that we don't measure. In economic terms, in policy making, is the same. We are not able to manage in terms of economic policy anything that we are not able to measure. Measure doesn't mean necessarily to have a number. It means to understand a movement, social terms, economic terms, trade terms, but we need to have understanding about what is going on. So, a general theory, a clear understanding among institutes of statistics, a new data, a new capacity to deal with data, and the understanding that we are facing now agents that are a lot more powerful than we were facing before. Thank you very much.